irrefutable evidence of the Chinese army soldiers pulling back from Patrol Point 14 at the Galwan Heights along the line of actual control. The first visual evidence here on India First. Take a look at the images we are putting out on your television screen. These are satellite images of Patrol Point 14 in Ladakh, and here you see the Chinese soldiers have pulled out, they've pulled back. What sources had told India today that the Chinese soldiers had begun pulling back. They've pulled back between 1.5 to 2 kilometers in the Galwan area, and the same is also happening at some of the other friction points, specifically at Patrol Point 15 and 17 Alpha. Not yet at Pangong So between finger 4 and finger 8. Evidence. We've told you what sources told India Today, and on India Today now we get you satellite imagery of the Galwan Heights of Patrol Point 14. Remember, this was the friction point between Indian and Chinese soldiers on the night of June 15. That's the time the Chinese were supposed to pull back, but they tried to stay on. Our braves, Colonel Santosh Babu and his men, 20 braves, made the supreme sacrifice of their lives. They pushed the Chinese back. Subsequently, the Chinese came in once again. But then there were talks between corps commanders, then finally between National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and of course the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. I want to quickly cut across to India Today's Rahul Kanwal, who's explaining the latest satellite imagery. India Today's news director Rahul Kanwal explains these latest images. Rahul, over to you.
Ever since information came that the Chinese army had pulled back from the Galwan Valley, everyone across the country has been waiting for visual confirmation on whether the pullback is for real. Through satellite imagery company Maxar, India Today's open source intelligence desk has been able to access 6 satellite pictures. 3 of them taken on the 28th of June, 3 on the 6th of July, and I will show you over the next few minutes how the situation has changed in the last week. But I want to give you some geographical context before I show these pictures to you. Remember, the area marked out in this red and white circle is the area where the confrontation took place between the Indian and the Chinese army. In previous satellite maps, we've shown you Indian presence on this side of the line of actual control, and a heavy Chinese presence on this side of the line of actual control, and there was a heavy deployment of the Chinese army just off PP 14. This is Patrol Point 14. So get set for the first satellite picture, this one from the 28th of June, and you can see in the Y junction where the confrontation between the Indian and the Chinese armies took place, there is a very substantial Chinese presence. There are tarpaulin nets, camouflage, you can see some tents, you can see some prefabricated huts, you can see as you come down this river valley some Chinese soldiers, you can in fact even see some vehicles. Each of these structures is a vehicle, like a large vehicle of the Chinese army. You can see road construction equipment. You can also see a very big shelter over here that's been created. You can see vehicles parked in this open area, and as I come down, you can see some more vehicles over here. So this was the first picture taken on the 28th of June. I show you now the first set of pictures that we've got access to from the 6th of July. This is a day after it was announced by India and China that the Chinese army had in fact pulled back. In that exact same Y junction, you can see that there is at this moment no trace of the Chinese army. We don't know if it will stay this way. We don't know if this truce will hold. We don't know if this pullback will stay like this forever. But at this moment, the Chinese army has indeed pulled back. As I come down the Nala, along the river valley, you can see that there is no Chinese presence for the immediate distance right behind Patrol Point 14. I'll now compare and contrast this on 2 maps by placing them next to each other. On the 28th of June, you can see in this area a big Chinese presence in that Y junction, which is where Colonel Babu and 19 other soldiers of 16 Bihar came in a bloody confrontation with the Chinese army, and the Chinese army took a big hit. In that same area, when you look at this Y junction, you can see that there is no Chinese presence. And as you come down as well, you can see here there's a lot of Chinese deployment. But once you start looking at that same area, and that's why we placed these two next to each other, in the same area as you come down, there is zero Chinese presence right next to Patrol Point 14. In fact, I'll zoom in and show you so you can actually see it up close and tight. In that Y junction area, here you see very clearly a very substantial Chinese presence, which can be seen through various structures that were created in that Y junction area. This is the next picture taken on the 6th of June. In this picture, you can see that same area has been cleared out. When I compare these two pictures by putting them next to each other, it's as clear as daylight. The Chinese presence, which could have been seen till the end of June, has now, after the Prime Minister's visit to Ladakh, after the special representatives of India and China spoke on the phone for 2 hours, the Chinese have in that very important Patrol Point 14 area pulled back. Now I'll show you what's happening in the depth areas. Now depth areas essentially means as you go back, just try and visualize this along the same river valley and you come back along that area, we'll show you what's happening in the depth area. Now let's start by zooming in and I'll show you right at the top. You can see 3 vehicles, you can see excavators here, an effort to clear out the road. As I come down, I see lots of structures. This is from the 28th of June, remember, lots of structures here as well. There's an excavator, an effort to widen the area available to build a motorable track. As I come down the river valley, here you can see a very substantial, here's a excavator, earth moving, road making equipment, big 3 big Chinese structures and tents. Here you see a whole posse of vehicles that are parked in file. Here as well you can see lots of structures. We don't know what's in these structures. It could be places where soldiers are sleeping. It could also possibly be places where they've kept equipment, weaponry, ammunition. That's not known for certain. But here you see large vehicles of the Chinese army parked in file. Here you see vehicles as well, and some structures where you've got equipment inside those structures. We don't know what that equipment is. This is from the 28th of June. Now the next picture is a picture of that same area taken a week later on the 6th of July. In the last picture I showed you, the Chinese had vehicles parked over here, they had excavators. As you come down the river valley, you see that there are no excavators visible, there are no vehicles visible. But as I pull back a fair distance, here you can see a very big Chinese structure. So this is if you see it this big in a satellite map, it's massive on the ground. So they've got equipment lying under that structure. We don't know what that equipment is, so they've left some equipment back. Not right next to Patrol Point 14 in the slight depth area. They've left some equipment. They can potentially come back for it later. But as far as personnel are concerned, as far as vehicles are concerned, for as far as the satellite image allows us to show you, the Chinese have very clearly pulled back. This from the 28th of June. You see all their vehicles lined up, you see a massive build up here, you see a very substantial build up in this bend of the river. However, in the same areas, when you look on the 6th of July, you find that the Chinese, except for this one area, that big structure that I just showed you, except for that and the odd vehicle here and there, the Chinese have very clearly pulled back. We worked with Colonel Vinayak Bhatt, who's a military satellite imagery expert. For his interpretation, this is his analysis. And remember, this is post the pullback on the 6th of July. These pictures are from Maxar, a satellite imagery company. You can see that the roads are almost empty. There is a massive tentage which can be seen. So that's the one area of concern. You don't see personnel, you don't see vehicles, but there's a big tentage and stuff below it that they've left. This is the Galwan flashpoint. Again, this from the 6th of July. The Galwan flashpoint completely desolate, empty. There's no Chinese presence there at all. That's a big relief. That in some senses is also an achievement of the dual track that we've been following. A press on the one side where diplomatically we've been very firmly engaging with the Chinese, militarily demonstrating our resolve, leading to a Chinese pullback in that controversial area. And also in the second image, as you come down the road is completely empty. You can't see any structure on that road at all. Now as I come back in depth, You see that the charcoal trucks which were visible earlier, the earth moving equipment, all of that has now been taken away. So broadly in this area the Indian army is pulled back, the Chinese army is pulled back. So if you were to draw concentric circles for a distance, now we don't know specifically what that distance is, but 1 to 2 kilometers is what's being said. In this area the Chinese army and the Indian army have pulled back. When it comes to whether the disengagement is for real, to the extent that these satellite images demonstrate, in the Galwan Valley you can see a massive change between the 28th of June and this from the 6th of July. Very clearly the military diplomatic pressure that India is making to bear on China seems to be yielding some grounds. Let's see if this holds.
Oh, absolutely, Rahul. For the moment, many thanks for joining me. You're absolutely right. India cannot take China at face value. Whether this withdrawal is tactical, whether this is deception or genuine disengagement, we'll only know. But the Indian Air Force is taking no chances. We'll know in some time, perhaps in the coming weeks, maybe even months. If the Chinese do not pull back to their peacetime location in the next several weeks and months, then we know that this pullback is just deception. They could try and come again. But this is where the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force are well and truly effectively deployed. In fact, the Indian Air Force has been carrying out operations even through the night. And India today's Manjeet Singh Negi got exclusive access to a frontline forward airbase where you have your Su-30 MKI air dominance fighters and the Apache attack helicopters both carrying out nighttime exercises, because that's where the element of surprise makes it very difficult for the enemy to fool you. Manjeet Singh Negi with this India Today exclusive.
That's the sound of a country that doesn't sleep. When day turns to night, there's no downtime here in the combat zone. Because even as China takes the first baby steps to pull back from eastern Ladakh, the Indian Air Force has raised its operational preparedness levels in Ladakh to maximum. And what you're looking at is proof of the red alert. 24/7, non-stop, no compromise. Earlier, we showed you high-tempo Apache attack chopper operations by day. And now, the most feared rotorcraft in the world gets set to prowl in the darkness. Pilots strapped in, these formidable machines are fully equipped for the night hunt. And India Today gets exclusive and complete access.
2 days ago, we showed you the day operation of Indian Air Force near China border. Tonight, we will show you how Indian Air Force works 24/7 to protect our border.
The Apache's night eyes lie in this sensor on the Apache's chin, the pilot's night vision sensor. Along with the day-night target acquisition system, the feed from this sensor goes directly to the pilot through his helmet-mounted system. The Indian Apaches flying in Ladakh are flying with Hellfire precision-guided munitions, rockets, and a devastating 30mm chain gun. But the true brain of the Apache, especially at night, isn't visible in these dark images. Don't be fooled by how innocuous that structure looks as it sits above the Apache's rotor. That's the AN APG-78 Longbow fire control radar. That little sensor enables target detection while the Apache is behind obstacles like hills and mountains, allowing the helicopter to launch an attack before it is even seen.
The night operations have an inherent element of surprise. The Indian Air Force is fully trained and ready to undertake entire spectrum of operations in any environment with the help of modern platforms and motivated personnel. This airbase is well equipped and ready to undertake and support the operations on both fronts simultaneously.
जिस तरह के हालात अभी बॉर्डर पर बने हुए हैं, हमारा जोश जो है इस समय आसमान से भी ऊंचा है और भारतीय वायुसेना का हर एक वायुयोद्धा, हर एक वायुयान पूरी तरह सक्षम है और हम किसी भी परिस्थिति के लिए से निपटने के लिए एकदम तैयार हैं।
The lack of light is no hindrance to this beast of a chopper. In fact, it brings its own advantages. But the Ladakh darkness is seeing more than just the Apache flex its muscle on combat patrols. That's the unmistakable double chop of the Chinook. The iconic tandem rotor heavy lift helicopters that are pulling their weight even in the darkness. Chinook pilots in Ladakh are similarly making full use of the helicopter's night vision systems, giving them complete freedom to fly and operate in the combat zone.
Amid the tension with China, Air Force is carrying out whole night operation. Message is loud and clear. We are ready with 24/7.
And away from the war helicopters, Indian Air Force jets like MiG-29s and Su-30s are also keeping the tempo of combat flights uninterrupted. The clock never stops. War readiness is non-negotiable here in Ladakh. With Manjeet Negi in Ladakh, Bureau Report, India Today.
And that's the point India has made to China. Territorial integrity is non-negotiable. But it's not just words, there's action on ground. For example, you saw how the Army and the Air Force are operating 24/7. So are personnel of the Border Roads Organization. They are constructing roads, and this is what is making China extremely uncomfortable, that India is quickly trying to catch up on infrastructure development. Not just the 255-kilometer long Durbuk, Shyok, Daulat Beg Oldie road, but feeder roads right up to the LAC. And that is why every time Chinese patrols come, there are Indian patrols already waiting for them. India Today's Manjeet Singh Negi also caught up with the BRO personnel. They're quickly building bridges, and very important bridges and roads that will protect our territorial integrity.
India is in full operational mode even as Chinese troops begin a limited pullback from flashpoints in eastern Ladakh. Vigilance hasn't slipped even a little, and as troops step back from the front lines, this is the big message India is sending out. That the chief irritant that sparked the standoff will not pause even for a moment. Road construction activity has been beefed up near the line of actual control for better connectivity with the northern sectors. This bridge, which you are seeing on your screens, did not exist 3 months ago. The Border Roads Organization has built a concrete bridge in place of a Bailey bridge in a record time of 3 months.
पहले इस सड़क पर इस तरह के पुराने लोहे के पुल बनाए गए थे जिन्हें वैली ब्रिज कहा जाता था, और अब वीआरओ ने पिछले 3 महीने के अंदर एक तरह से कह सकते हैं रिकॉर्ड समय में एक नया मजबूत पुल पर तैयार किया है, जिस पर सेना की बड़े वाहनों की बड़े हथियारों की आसानी से आवाजाही हो सकती है.
We have made this bridge in a day and night working over it in a record time of 3 months. Now it is the capability of carrying the 70 tons. That means any sort of load can be carried out to the LAC. Government has given us a mandate to construct, so we don't have any concern with the who's objecting and what.
India's determined efforts to press on with infrastructure in Ladakh is historic and comes after decades of neglect. And this is not the only bridge which has been erected. There are 2 more such bridges which have been made to assist the troops in transferring heavy armored vehicles like tanks.
आर्मी ट्रूप्स का गन टो करके लेके जाता था. उस गाड़ी का ये कर्व में दिक्कत होता है. अभी इसको हमने नेगोशिएट करने के लिए हमने ये नया ब्रिज बनाया.
India Today travelled further where another Bailey bridge on a river near Nimu is being turned into a concrete one. BRO is building 40 strategic bridges in Ladakh, of which 20 have been completed in the last 3 years. This, according to the BRO, is one of the major reasons for Chinese belligerence.
इस वक्त हम आपको एक्सक्लूसिव तस्वीरें दिखा रहे हैं लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल पर किस तरह से सेना की आवाजाही को आसान बनाने के लिए सामरिक सड़कों और पुलों का निर्माण का जो काम है वो तेजी के साथ हो रहा है। खासतौर से पिछले 3 सालों में चीन से लगने वाली लद्दाख में जो 1200 किलोमीटर लंबी लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल है वहाँ पर ऐसे सामरिक जो पुल हैं उनका निर्माण का काम तेज हुआ है। खासतौर से अगर सरकार की बात की जाए, मोदी सरकार ने पिछले सालों में चीन के साथ ऐसी सड़कों और पुलों के निर्माण पर काफ़ी जोर दिया है।
The construction of these roads have been a challenging task, but will be of great importance in case of any worst case scenario at the borders. The network of roads and bridges will ensure development, defense and sovereignty. With Manjeet Negi in Nimu, Ladakh, Bureau Report, India Today.
So China has been very uncomfortable about India's infrastructure development along the Ladakh line of actual control. But even today, there was a meeting that was taken by Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh. There were BRO officials, top officials of the Ministry of Defence, and the focus is to ensure road construction is speeded up. Last mile connectivity to LAC, that is India's big focus. But let me now shift focus to another story where India has taken the lead and perhaps the world will follow. Remember, it was the Narendra Modi government that banned 59 Chinese apps, including TikTok. There was an apprehension that these are Chinese spy apps. Now, taking a lead from India, the United States is considering banning not just TikTok but other Chinese apps, and US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said so. But it's not just US, even Australia. There are voices within Australia that now say that TikTok is a front, it's a Chinese spy app. TikTok and other Chinese apps should be banned.
After India's digital strike on 59 Chinese apps, the United States too may be following suit. In a bid to corner China over its territorial aggressions in Asia, America too plans to ban Chinese apps. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has said that the Trump administration plans to ban Chinese apps, including TikTok. The final decision rests with President Trump, who has been extremely vocal about punishing China.
China's secrecy, deceptions and cover-up allowed it to spread all over the world. 189 countries. And China must be held fully accountable.
US ban would hit Beijing hard as Chinese apps rake in $700 million in just one quarter. TikTok is the third most popular app in the United States with 165 million downloads. Its revenue touched nearly $90 million last year. On 29 June, the Modi government had banned China-linked apps, including TikTok, for being a threat to national security. The move came amidst the tense LAC standoff, and leaders across the political spectrum in the United States have called out China's aggression.
I mean, look what China did in the Southwest. It's essentially invaded India over the last few weeks and killed Indian soldiers. No country on China's periphery right now is safe from Chinese aggression. All those countries want a close relationship with the United States. We ought to have one.
From Taiwan to Japan, from US to Australia, the world has read Beijing's evil designs and is now moving in to tame the dragon.
So India has taken the lead. Remember, the Chinese tentacles that are being spread out in East China Sea, South China Sea and elsewhere, they've been cut off in Galwan. We'll be tracking that story very, very closely. But that is all I have time for on this special broadcast this evening. Many thanks for watching.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.